Welcome to Mixed Media Creations with me, Creative Katie, Karen Birchall. Check me out on Instagram. Today we are doing another Journaling by 5, revamped and revisited. And I'm still finishing some more pages. Here are the next 4 pages. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe and select the option to be notified as soon as I upload a new video. That way you won't miss any. So we have this girl, and again, I've taken the sentiments and did a search on Pinterest, played around with my Word program and mix and match fonts and selected some sizes, and so I kind of cut them out before I got to the free play. For me, that's a really important part. Now, I was pointing there to the top and bottom, and there was a jelly print that I had created probably 2.5 years ago. But there was some blue in amongst that purple, and I really liked that blue. So here I'm taking Prussian blue and really watering it down and just adding it to this background. So I'm really going to be filling in this background and adding a lot of interest. And when I'm doing this, when I start this, I really don't know how much I'm going to end up covering, how much white space. You know, I could have just left this the way it was, edge it, shade the girl, and call it done. But I want to show you different ways and different techniques and mediums that you can use when you're finishing. Because really, if nothing else, I hope you get the idea that the sky is really the limit. One of the good ideas that you can do is if you're not sure what you want to do with a page, you can scan it and print it off colored and practice what you think you might want to do there. It'll give you an idea of what it looks like. But if you put a coat of gel medium on there or clear gesso on top before you do something that may be questionable, you will be able to remove most things. So here I am getting my absolute favorite sprays, the Lindy Starburst, and I believe, the name just escapes me, but I'll put it in the description box below along with other materials that you see me using. Now these Starbursts have mica powder in them. So the ink in this is purple and the mica is teal. So you get this two-toned. And I just love how this mica catches in all the nooks and crannies when you have texture. And that was what I really wanted to do. I wanted to bring out that texture and I wanted to get that little bit of shimmer and shine with this girl. And it kind of goes with the sentiment. Looks like she definitely has an attitude. And I picked a sentiment, be a voice, not an echo. And, I want this page to really pop and go along with that. So I'm adding this. Once this is dry, you will really be able to see, you can't quite see it yet, but later on, you can see some of that teal shimmer, showing through. It just made such a difference. And I was very, very, very happy. I think something that was on there on the bottom was lifting up, and I was just using gel medium to re-adhere it. So I was going to use my big brush pen to shade around there. And then I just decided, I just am so much happier with my woodless charcoal pencil. It's quick, it's easy. Sometimes I'll add more, sometimes I'll add something else on top of it, but it's a good, quick, easy way of getting some shading in there. Now you can see that shimmer. This is just yum. There's a little bit of gold that I put in the background. Now I'm using the floating acrylic technique here, but I'm using white paint. And you've seen me use that in the last finishing video, using white instead of black. You can use any color. Now, interestingly enough here, Because the starburst sprays are not permanent and they will reactivate with water, that is exactly what is happening. They're reactivating with the wet of the paint. So I am getting this halo effect, and it's picking up color, so it's not even pure white around this girl. Now, I really had to spend extra time working it, but I absolutely love, love, love how it turned out. Excuse me. So, I'm adding more layers because I want it to be a little bit more white. But this is something, did I know going in that this was going to happen? No, I should have. But I will do this on purpose to get this lovely effect. There you can see that the teal shimmer caught in the texture paste. I'm just kind of going and adding layers and a little bit of water, kind of brushing it out. I don't want this to look like I took a white marker and just went around it. That color starburst is one of my all-time favorites, but they're all so beautiful. Get a good close-up of the background there. So I edged the sentiment, and then I decide I'm going to take my script stamp and I'm going to add a little bit more interest into this background because it really is about layers. So I use black here, and of course this would be easier done before you put the focal point, but that doesn't always, the idea doesn't always come to you. So you just have to be careful, and you can mask off the girl, and I think later on you're going to see me doing that. So the fonts that I used here, the script is Beyond the Mountain, and the other one type is Cookies and Milk, and I use both of these quite often. And I love combining fonts. When you look at some of these stamps, the sentiment stamps that they have, that's what they're doing. And you can always cut, cut these out. However, you can kind of semi-fussy cut them. You can also print them off on deli paper. And if I remember, I will put a link to the video where I show how I've used my printer to do it, to print on deli paper or tissue paper. So I just needed more bling, and so I used the script stamp, and I put the gold paint on the stamp and add that on. And oh my God, this background is to die for. Grab my fineliner bottle. I am loving this in the finishing category. Went around the sentiment, and now I am basically doing some doodling with my fineliner bottle. This isn't something I don't doodle a lot, but when you have a magazine picture, you can do more than just glue it down there. You can shade on top of it. You can alter the colors. You can do some doodling on it. Now, if you don't have a fineliner bottle, although I highly recommend getting one, use, Uniball Signo White. Use a Jelly Roll pen. But when you're doing, journaling by 5, give yourself permission to play and try things out. The worst thing that could happen is you wreck the page. It's paper paint. That's it. Now, when you get the fineliner bottle, you're going to have to experiment with how much water to add to get the right consistency. I also suggest just, cutting out some magazine pictures or different shapes and just using the bottle. See what kind of marks you can make with it and get used to manipulating it. Because if you practice before you go to the page, you're going to be more successful. Did not like that, and because there's gel medium under there, I was able to get rid of it without it causing any problems to anything underneath. And just edging with the fineliner bottle a little bit more. And just this is a very sketchy edge, which is pretty much all I can do. I can't do a perfectly straight line. So moving along to this one, and I really like the background and the colors that I have here. I just noticed I didn't get paint all the way to the end. So I'm just using the same color paints that I got, or matching it as closely as I can, and just touching up some of the areas that didn't get paint. Now I'm using my archival, but this is a blue, and just edging my sentiment. And it just seemed with this one, this inspirational page, that the quote could be in, kind of this box shape. Sometimes I fussy cut them around, sometimes I cut them all apart into lines, but this one, it just seemed, weight-wise, it just worked. And that's just trial and error. I try one thing, and when I put this one on there, because I had typed this quote out in 2 different ways, and when I put this one on there, it just seemed to balance. So I'm edging with more of this blue around the edge. I just kind of want to get it kind of smoky, hazy around the edges. And there you can see the texture paste. And what I'm doing here is, with pretty much, I think you're going to see me doing this on every single page, is that shading. And, again, if you learn anything from all these videos, the shading, the highlighting, it's really important to finish off that page, to make what you want to stand out or to push things back. And you can go on the outside of whatever you've collaged on there, or you can go on top and actually shade or highlight the magazine image, because you don't have to keep the magazine image exactly as they have it. I just love these 2 little birds, they just have that little shade of blue that just worked with the background. And as you've seen with other shading, time and time again, you put thin layers and build it up. Don't start with a lot of paint and then think you're going to remove it. This quote says, if you want to fly, give up everything that holds you down or weighs you down. I just love that quote. And in searching for these quotes, this font, was called Beautiful Heartbeat, and it has this nice mix of all caps with the first letter being bigger. It's just kind of fun. I just wanted to tie this sentiment box into the rest of it, so I'm just doing the same kind of shading, and I believe I'm using Payne's Gray here, not a straight black. And that's because I've got blue tones in this picture. As I was saying before I cut myself off, the sentiments that I searched for to finish off my journaling by 5 pages. They go into, you know, my Word program, and I keep them. And, you know, once you've searched them and found a really great quote, I tend to find that I use it again and again. So, you know, these may show up on an iCAD or an ATC, or on another art journal page. But this way, by putting them on this page, it's kind of like a place that I can keep my quotes and I can refer back. And I think we'll call that done. Oh, now this page. I use the quote, if you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. This is a song lyric, and I love that song. But this background, it was too busy. It was too something. I didn't know where to go with it. So here is what you can do. I'm taking white gesso, and I am whiting it all out. The only thing that's going to be kept is the focal image, which, the focal image was chosen because of the colors in the background. So the background kind of served a purpose, and you're still going to see all the texture from any collaged items and the texture paste. That is still coming through. It was too busy. I just did not like it too much. And I thought, okay, I'm going to make this a simpler background. So I'm using my angle brush, and I find that's easier to get in, on the edges. And again, I'm not being super careful here. And I do give it a couple coats, and I do thin down the gesso a little bit. Now, because I chose the quote about dancing, I am stamping my music stamp on here, and I just masked off the couple because I don't want to get the stamp on them. And I'm just using my black archival. And this time around, I decided I'm going to dig out my Dilutions paints. And I love these Dilutions paints. I wish mine kind of dried up a little bit, and that's concerning, but they blend so lovely. So I've got the green, lime zest, lemon. I can't think what the names are, but I'll put a link to them in the videos, and the Calypso teal. And I am just going. Now I picked these colors because there's that yellow in her dress, there's that kind of lime green, and there's a teal in her dress. Now whenever you're using these Dilutions paints, I find that it always goes through this ugly unblended stage, but just keep working it. So I put a coat there of the matte medium, and you can also use clear gesso, because if you try something and you don't like it, you can erase it if you have that kind of barrier coat. You can't see from this shot the teal that's in her dress, but it's definitely there. And, because I had the purple in a couple of these other pages, I wanted to do something different, which is why I strayed away from that violet color. So I'm just using a smaller brush to get into, the nooks and the crannies there. So you can still see some of the music notes coming through. Now I usually edge with whatever the darkest color is of the Dilutions paints that I've used in a series, and in this case that would be this Calypso teal. And then I grabbed the Midnight Blue, and this is where it just like started to sing for me. Now, in her dress, there is kind of a dioxazine purple color, which is very close to the Midnight Blue, and that's why I grabbed for the blue. And I'm just very lightly going over the texture to bring out those texture dots. And this kind of makes it like it's nighttime in my mind. It's kind of given it a nice background. Now I grabbed out this tiny dot stencil again, and I'm just going to stencil some of the same colors through the stencil, just to bring those colors in, especially that yellow, because that's in the dress. And then I'm doing some with the dark blue as well. Just kind of edging it to get, again, that smoky edge. And I'm just showing you here, because it's been a while since I've done this, I'm wetting down a coffee filter, and then I spray the felt applicators, the Ranger felt applicators, and then I just get out all the excess paint, and I put it onto these coffee filters. And these coffee filters become wonderful collage items. They look so nice on for a background or when you're collaging. And since I had the stencil out there, I'm just going to use the stencil and go through. Most of the time I cut this stuff out of the videos, but I just wanted to show you that you can always reuse and use up the leftover paints and take that time. So now, you guessed it, now's the time to do the shading. And I'm just using, I think I'm using black acrylic paint here. I think I may have, I wanted it a little bit darker. He's got the dark in his suit, the black, so I felt that the black wouldn't be too strong here. And just going back and forth. Dry between layers. Just edging it with black, so now it's been with the blue paint, and now I'm just adding a little bit more detail. And that just framed it. And some of the music notes got pushed back too far. I just wanted to see it a little bit more, so I'm just stamping it again with the music notes. And just masking the couple so I don't get it onto them. So I semi-fussy cut this, and I was going to do it like that. And then I realized I have these 4 circles down the side, and I haven't really played up the fact that they're there. And then I decided, you know what? I hope you dance is 4 words. What happens if I semi-fussy cut this out and I make that say, I hope you dance? I'm just going to glue that down with gel medium. when you're finishing, you're basically problem solving. It's like, okay, what works, what doesn't work? What do I have on this page? What do I have to work with? And you start from there. So then to bring out those circles even more, I'm just using, first I tried to use the charcoal pencil, but because of all the texture, it was really difficult. So I'm using the float technique here with black acrylic paint. And I just loved how this worked because it really brings out the little circles that were in that was in the tiny circles that the Crafters Workshop stencil, and it kind of frames those words. I could have just had this, I hope you dance, instead of the other part. To finish a page, I'm not even sure how many decisions we make to finish one page. And just doing that shading around those circles, I think really balanced this page off. And then I'm just putting a little bit of shading underneath the other part here, just to make everything work together. Now this page was, when it started, was the page I disliked the most. And I absolutely love this. In fact, I have the beginnings of a duplicate of this page I'm doing on a canvas, following the steps that I've done. I just like everything about this page. All I'm doing here is adding a little bit of color where I missed, and a little bit of script stamp to balance off the script stamp that was already there from the napkin. And I'm going to shade around the butterfly. And I'm using Payne's Gray. If you're not sure if black is too much, try the Payne's Gray, try the lighter color, and then work your way up. It's just easier to go from lighter to darker. The stencil that's used here is called the Segmented Swirl. It is a Deco Art Americana stencil. One of the first stencils I bought, and I just love this stencil. It just works so well in every application. The butterfly was a free printable that I found on Pinterest. And I just have a whole file folder full of cutout butterflies. Because when in doubt, put a butterfly on it. And it just happened to have that blue that just matched. And then the little bit of, the little marks of the segmented in the swirl really seems to work well with, those marks that are on the butterfly. Which is why I chose it as a focal point, right? So that's another thing. Once you've discovered something that works, you can duplicate it and do, a for real job. Because I don't know if I would have come across this particular combination of everything. I'm just finding there was an imbalance in the yellow, so I'm just adding a little bit of the yellow color just in a couple places just to make a cohesive page. Then I decide and I kind of almost didn't do this, but I'm just whitening up this part of the butterfly. I just thought I needed a little bit more brightness on the butterfly to make it seem to, stand out a little bit more. So again, another way to use this fineliner bottle. And I decided to leave it as is without a quote. So here are all these 4 pages. We really reworked some of the backgrounds, and some of them we barely touched at all. The page will tell you what it needs. Don't be afraid to experiment and have fun. See you on the next 4.